For a long time, I couldn't understand the fascination with the Soulsborne series. My introduction to it was back in 2015 when a friend lent me Bloodborne, and while I instantly appreciated its Lovecraftian universe, incredible art direction, and epic score, something about it just didn't resonate with me. It felt frustrating, overly punitive, and I couldn't see how it justified the time investment needed to get good. Fast forward to early 2019 when I picked it back up again, and, before I knew it, was playing it for hour-long stints, musing on its mechanics when out and about, and just generally being a little bit addicted. The game had dug its claws into me, and Bloodborne quickly became a springboard for a Soulsborne marathon as I devoured Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and Dark Souls 3 in quick succession. Looking back on my recent Soulsborne Odyssey, I've come to a better understanding of the roots of my obsession this past year, and what, for me, drives my love for the series is the learning. The Soulsborne games are some of the greatest learning experiences currently available in any medium, and I'm not suggesting that through the game we're learning about weighty topics like the meaning of life. The only learning we're really taking away is about understanding how to play the game better. What I mean by the Soulsborne games as some of the best learning experiences out there is this. The way the game educates its players is among the most engaging I've ever seen. I'm a learning designer by trade, so I'm often preoccupied by ways in which people teach and learn, and what makes some methods better than others. And so today, I want to use this video to deconstruct the ways the Soulsborne series educates its players, and why I believe it to be so effective. In his 2012 TED Talk, The Clues to a Great Story, director Andrew Stanton shares his secret for effective storytelling through a catchphrase he coins, the unifying theory of 2 plus 2. In essence, this speaks of the satisfaction an audience feels when forced to fill in the gaps and put things together. To paraphrase Stanton, audiences actually want to work for their meal, so don't give them 4, give them 2 plus 2. I agree with Stanton's comments and think that working for your meal is a hugely satisfying feeling that surpasses the storytelling sphere and applies to learning too. Take Soulsborne then. These games often have a reputation for unfairness. The online world abounds with videos of Soulsborne enemies emerging, seemingly out of the blue, to destroy the player and make them lose their hours of hard-earned progress. It's common for Dark Souls detractors to dismiss the games on the grounds that designers are merely unfairly deceiving the players and setting up impossible traps that players can't help but fall prey to. But I don't think this is strictly true. Instead, I'd argue the designers are taking a leaf out of Stanton's book and simply making the player work for their meal. Let's look at one such example. In one area of Dark Souls 3, players find themselves traversing a ruined settlement when, from nowhere, a giant projectile flies towards their avatar, collides with them, and causes their sudden death. Now, on first impulse we may feel tempted to curse the designers for tricking us once again, but upon closer inspection, all the clues had been given beforehand. It was just up to us to take note. Cannon fodder enemies were placed at the entrance to this area. Gargantuan arrows covered every inch of the environment. And, most obvious of all, at an earlier save point, the archer was seen in the far distance, flexing his bowstrings. So really, any blame we might attribute to having died to the archer's arrows can only be aimed at ourselves, and not the game's designers. The designers were just asking us to play cautiously and think critically. Why the work for your meal approach is so appealing, Stanton argues, is because we're born problem solvers who get a kick from solving problems. And I think he's right. Personally, game design that forces me to think is more satisfying than a game that holds my hand to the point of making me feel stupid. And people don't want to be made to feel stupid, something that applies as much to learning as it does to storytelling. So to summarise my first point about what Soulsborne teaches us as a learning designer, it's this. When wanting a person to learn something, avoid patronising your audience and instead encourage critical thinking if you want to improve learner engagement. Now, before continuing, it's worth taking a moment to explain the Soulsborne series' idiosyncratic take on progression. Dark Souls games are unforgiving in terms of player progression. While most games demand you invest time in them for the reward of XP, or experience points, Soulsborne games make the same demand of the player, but without the guarantee of the same reward. In Dark Souls games, XP comes in the form of souls that are amassed by players as they explore environments and kill enemies. Not only can this XP be banked at certain points only, bonfires, it can completely be lost upon player death. So when exploring a new environment in these games, a common question players might ask themselves is, should I push on, potentially dying and sacrificing all the XP I've earned, or head back, sacrificing the environmental progression I've made? What it comes down to is a toss-up between risk and reward, and I've come to appreciate that greater risks and greater rewards subsequently lead to greater player engagement. Here's an example of this. In the first Souls game, bonfires were peppered sporadically throughout its environments, meaning the question of should I proceed or head back carried real weight. Some of the greatest highs I experienced came from barely making it through an area, having amassed a bunch of XP, and just making it to that bonfire by the skin of my teeth, knowing that my hard-earned XP was finally safe. Conversely, the gut-wrenching loss I felt upon losing my XP after, say, an hour's play session was shocking in how visceral it felt. Compare this with Dark Souls 3, however, where bonfires are far more plentiful, so the risks and rewards are reduced, and you might begin to understand why this game didn't resonate with me in quite the same way. These two maps, showing the placement of bonfires in Dark Souls and Dark Souls 3, probably offers the best indication of what I'm talking about. Compare the lengthy, meandering route between bonfires in the former with the short-lived, linear route between bonfires in the latter, and you can probably see why Dark Souls 3 felt altogether less satisfying. So to summarise my second point, when wanting learners to feel engaged, don't be afraid to raise the stakes, using larger carrots and larger sticks. Doing this can mean that success is met with hugely triumphant feelings when a learner's hard work pays off. That said, also be wary of this approach, since it can sometimes backfire. One need only look to reaction videos like this for a sense of what I'm talking about. The final element that makes Soulsborne games effective as learning tools is their unusual take on social learning. As we know from school, one key way humans obtain new knowledge is by learning from the teachings of other human beings. The Soulsborne developers know this, and so capitalize on social learning and collaboration through the messaging system included in the game. This system allows players to leave one another notes as they explore the world. For instance, a player in London might leave a note in her play session that's picked up by another in Madrid in his play session. The notes can often be the crucial support a player needs to finally defeat a boss, avoid a trap, or discover a secret. But on the other hand, some players use these notes not to help but hinder their fellow players. For instance, a note that offers advice like, "Try jumping off," is rarely offering support to players, but is instead likely luring them to an untimely death. So, this collaborative messaging mechanic harkens back to my earlier point about making players work for their meal, since players have to distinguish from the notes that can be trusted and the ones that can't. And I think this is interesting, and an unusual take on social learning. I mean, imagine if at school your physics teacher announced at the lesson's start that 25% of the stuff she'd share today would be totally made up, and that it was up to you to decipher the true facts from the fake news. Well, this would be quite a bold move, wouldn't it? I'd argue it might even cause you to pay a little more attention. So I suppose my third point here really is about capitalising on social learning when wishing to enhance your learning experience, but also being bold and not simply relying on tried and tested cliches like leaderboards as a means of heightening engagement. As Soulsborne games show, there are other, more creative means of fostering collaboration at our disposal. To conclude then, it's in the collaboration, high stakes, and enforced critical thinking that I believe makes the Soulsborne series so effective in terms of player learning and engagement. There's more I could say, but I think I'll leave it there for now. Thanks for checking out this video, and if you'd like to see more, please leave a comment, like, or subscribe.